Apparently, 90% of serotonin, right, which is a chemical that makes us happy, it is produced in your gut and not necessarily in your brain. Right? So that means, that means that the mood or your mood might have more to do with your last meal and not necessarily with your last thought.
With intermittent fasting, I also love it for people that are struggling with diabetes or insulin resistance because it also helps to regulate blood glucose levels. Okay. Right? So it helps in that way. It regulates your insulin levels, it regulates your blood glucose levels. When you go for periods, for that fasting time is very important.
You mentioned earlier on that people neglect what they put into their bodies. As long as I go to gym, right? As long as I'm staying fit, the outer side is important. But how do you then strike that balance? Because Hi guys, you are watching CouchTalk with LHS, where we talk about HR-related topics, entrepreneurship, business-related topics, and the ever-evolving workplace. I am your host, Newampele, aka Boss Lady. Today I've got an interesting fact. Before we start, interesting fact. Do you guys know about it? Apparently, 90% of serotonin, right, which is a chemical that makes us happy, it is produced in your gut and not necessarily in your brain. Right? So that means, that the mood or your mood might have more to do with your last meal and not necessarily with your last thought. Quite interesting, right? So what are we talking about today? You guessed it. We're talking about nutrition and wellness. And we are joined by Dr. Lebogang Masekela from Dr. Lebogang Nutrition and Wellness. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely a pleasure. So before we start, something that's very interesting. Is it true?
It's very true.
Because I'm sending out things and I need to make sure it is
absolutely true. What a lot of people don't know is that your gut is actually called the second brain.
Oh, okay.
Right? So most of the hormones, a lot of them are created and produced in the gut. So that's why, like you've just said, your last meal could be the reason for what you're feeling, if you're depressed or happy. And also that's where the term hangry comes from, because if you think about it, when you're angry, it affects your general personality.
That makes sense. Now, we just say things without, realizing. Because now that we know about it, somebody would be more aware in terms of what it is that you take into your body. All right, before we talk about the topic, because I think today's session is just about nutrition, we're going to dive into it, and wellness. Okay. So maybe before we start, tell us about what inspired you to go into this field.
What inspired me is, I think a lot of people were just not aware. Like you said, it's more about awareness. Right? So it was about raising awareness that your nutrition really affects your health. I think people don't make the link. They think, I can eat whatever I want as long as I'm going to the gym, I'm okay. So a lot of us don't connect the dots, and that's basically what I wanted to do, was to raise awareness, teach people the fact that what you eat is your health. It counts a lot towards your health. It counts a lot towards your mental health. It's not just how you look. Because people will think
on the outer side, right?
People will think, it's about losing weight or gaining weight, but it's more than that. Like we've already discussed, it affects your gut health, it affects your mental health, it affects your health in general.
Yes. That's quite interesting, because every single time when we talk nutrition, we talk healthy food, we link it with expense. It's expensive, right? So how do you then, how would you then advise somebody who thinks like that, because it is it's out there and it's not necessarily the truth, but how would you then advise somebody?
It's definitely not the truth. It's a misnomer, because we are a nation that is very instant, right? We want fast food. We want things that I can get it now, cook within like 10, 15 minutes and I'm done. And that then means that what we're going to do is you want to go now buy the vegetables from Woolies, right? And you want them packaged and you want them cut, already peeled. That's going to be expensive. But if you go to your grocery, your food lovers market, let's say, and you get the carrots intact, they're cheaper than if you're getting them from a packet. If they process, they packed for you. So that's where people, because we want them packed and already done for us, you're going to pay a price for that. For convenience, right? So the thing is, people are looking for convenience more than health. So if you're chasing convenience, it will be more expensive.
I think you're quite right in saying that, because I'm just thinking about me as well. Now you've got things that are already like body grated vegetables. Instead of me just going to do that, you just try and yes, you pay a price. And I think that's where people just need to balance the two, because every time we talk about healthy foods, nutrition, we always link it to expense. So it's about the balance that you need to bring in.
It's definitely about the balance. And also, if you think about it, if a lot of people actually nowadays, funny enough, are growing their plants. Like they're actually growing plants in the back. So I mean, if you've got like a little vegetable garden, it will save you a lot of money.
But you must be prepared to do the work at the vegetable gardens.
And I'm not that kind of person. It's about the work, right?
Absolutely.
Not the convenience.
Absolutely. And then, Doctor, just in terms of, people that are busy, for example, because you mentioned an issue of convenience, you mentioned we want things that are quick, not necessarily because we're lazy, but because there's so many things that are happening.
You're busy.
We are busy. So I can just give you an example. Like this week, somebody said to me, for example, I've never seen you preparing food or making food at work. Is it an HR thing, or sometimes we forget about ourselves because we are so, in our work? How would you advise? What method? What is it that we need to do? Intermittent fasting, for example. When people eat at a certain time, is that healthy? So those kind of things.
Yeah. So it depends. Intermittent fasting is not for everyone, right? You need to be very disciplined when it comes to that, because it's strict. So what you do is you're basically training your body to eat at a certain time. And then fast at a certain time, right? So it's for certain people, it's not for everyone. But those that do it, like personally, I do it. And it works for me, it works for my busy schedule, because my mornings are a bit busy. And so I only eat in the afternoon, like I only eat after 12 or 1 o'clock sometimes. So my morning is free. I don't have to think about what I'm eating, right? So it can work for somebody like that. But I think for the general public, it's about meal prep. And that's the one thing we forget, like meal prep. We have to make time for what we eat. Nutrition is important. It's not something that we should be like, we have that thing of, I'll catch something, I'll get something. That's where the problems come in, because then you're gonna catch KFC and all of these and all these other things, right? So we want you to stay healthy, and if you want to stay healthy, you need to lunchbox, lunch skins, kaftin. Yes.
Because as you were saying, sorry to interrupt, as you were saying, I think maybe again it's the life of a consultant, and I know it's a bad habit. And I know it's really a bad habit, and that's what I do as well. When you are at clients' offices, it's very difficult to I'm going to take my kaftin, go to the kitchen. It's not necessarily easy, but the pre-prep is quite critical.
Definitely.
Because if you don't, when you get there, you're like, what's around? Let's just get something and grab something for lunch.
Pre-prep is very important, and we not even forget it. A lot of us never thought about it. Like we don't think about it. It's not something that is on our to-do list, but it should be.
And then just tell me then the consequences then of poor nutrition, right? What consequences would you say they are? Maybe if you can just name a few. Specifically, if we focus on the busy schedules and what does it do to our bodies?
I mean, as I've already mentioned, your nutrition really affects your whole health. Like, we're not just talking about your physical health, So it will, first and foremost, your physical health will definitely not be optimal. And when your physical health is not optimal, you're feeling sluggish, you don't have energy, right? You're not at your best, you're not operating at your best. Then it also affects your mental health as well, as we've already said, that it does affect your mood. So if you're not eating healthy, if you're not eating enough, because sometimes people eat, but they're not really eating nutritious food, right? So eating does not.
I feel so guilty.
So eating doesn't necessarily mean you're getting the stuff that you need. Right? And that's where I think a lot of us go wrong. So if your food is not nutritious, if it's not feeding your mind, feeding your gut, then you're gonna have no energy. You're going to be grumpy. You're gonna be hangry. You just overall your body, mind, and emotions are just not going to be at optimal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think that's also very, very important. Now we bring it into the workplace.
Yeah.
Because I think we spend most of our time, right,
Yeah,
in the work, at work, definitely. So we don't realize the things that we do prior to coming are also affecting us, right? So we've got in the workplaces, there's employee wellness programs, or your EAPs,
yes,
for example, employee assistance programs, right? So those things are put into the workplace to assist with productivity, for example, to build culture, morale, to lower absenteeism within the organizations, right? Do you think they are effective? Because they also help. Because they're only part of nutrition, mental health. And it's very key in that as well. Do you think they are effective?
They're definitely effective, especially if they're done more regularly, because I know that a lot of companies would maybe like do it once in a year or something like that, which would be fine. It's more, so if you're doing it like once in a year, it's more doing it for culture, right? Just to increase morale on that day. We know we're not working, we're wearing our tights, it's like it's a nice to have, right? But I guess at that time it's just introducing people also to wellness, because not wellness is not important to all of us. Right? Some people just live their life, So it does create that kind of a space for increased morale and whatever. But when you do it more often, so let's say when you do it like biannually, even can still work, but like quarterly, that works well, because then we get to even monitor what is going on with the employees. So as you've already mentioned, it increases productivity. It really does, because as I've mentioned, people become more energetic, right? When you're not sick, you're energetic. When you're eating well, you have the energy to move around. Things get done quicker. Right? Than when somebody's slumpy or sluggish and all of that. It definitely decreases absenteeism.
And that is the biggest problem. Now we're going into winter.
Yeah.
Doctors knows. So maybe if we can just talk about that as well before we move on to other things as well. Just in terms of absenteeism, how does it assist? Because I know companies are struggling with such things. Yeah. And when people are sick, there's nothing you can do. Yeah. People are sick. So how can then that help organizations?
Yeah. So it helps. Let's say, for instance, like we offer employee wellness programs. So we do have things like vitamin drips, which the most common that we do for wellness employees would be energy boosters and immune boosters. So somebody who's eating well, who's looking after their immune system, because that also needs to be fed, vitamin C, all of that, people that are supplementing. So when you teach them, so the idea behind employee wellness programs, I feel, should always be teaching, which is why whenever I do a session with the company, I insist that there has to be a talk, because there's no point that we come there, we test your blood pressure, we test whatever, and then we go. But you don't really know what everything was about. So there has to be a teaching session where we let you know that this is how you're supposed to live, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what needs to be done, so that you understand, so that even when I'm not there with you tomorrow, next week, you can still continue doing what you need to do. So with absenteeism, when people know what to eat, when they know how to feed themselves so that they are more energetic, so that they improve the immune system, then they don't fall sick. Exactly. Right? Then they don't fall sick. If somebody's injured, there's nothing you can do with that. Yes. But if somebody has diarrhea, which is always the common one, or they've got the flu, or these are things that can be controlled or managed with just your diet only. So that's how it actually helps with that.
Oh, okay. And then while we're still talking about those wellness days, because rightfully so, I think the mistake that we make in companies or as HR professionals sometimes is that we only focus on the wellness days. Right?
Yes.
So we focus on an event. It's an event, we test, and then afterwards it then just goes quiet. Right? Throughout the year. But then how would you then advise HR professionals or companies, maybe, because there are some companies that don't have an HR department, in terms of being consistent with your messages, being consistent with how you implement wellness with your employees.
That's why it definitely has to be a culture. Like it has to be a lifestyle, like something that is intentional. And that's why I always say, at least if you can do the wellness days, 4, 5, 6 times, obviously depending on your budgets, a year, then people remember, right? That, oh, okay, Ghana, they taught us this, and then in a month or two again, it's the same thing, so it becomes part of your lifestyle, because then it's not just something you do once and then you forget about it. And then another thing would be something like, as part of a culture, like having things like Wellness Wednesdays or whatever. I know a lot of companies would do them on like Fridays, where you come with your sports clothes or something, or you go for a walk or whatever. It's just about implementing and creating a culture of wellness and health.
I think that's a good idea, because it doesn't always have to be expensive, right? It can be those initiatives. Every Fridays, let's go for a walk, or maybe Smoothie Wednesday, just to increase
something simple
awareness, nutrition and things like that. Something simple within the organizations. And then on the flip side, though, as much as companies are introducing these programs, right, to assist, because sometimes employees are not comfortable in talking to their managers or HR about their problems, right? And we have these programs where we're saying there's an external third party that can assist with your mental health. If you've got problems, speak to these people. And based on experience, what I've seen is that some people are hesitant to contact these service providers, because it's still taboo. People might say, I've got a problem, or depression, it's still seen as. So how would you advise these employees? Because it's there, companies are paying for it, we care about you holistically, use these services, but people are scared, especially because sometimes we would arrange for somebody to come into the office, and then we would say, anybody who wants to go talk. And people don't. People don't.
It's unfortunate, but it's true. Mental health for us, especially Black people, is still taboo. We still don't quite get it. It's either you are okay or you're crazy. Like for us, there's no in between. It's either you are okay or you're crazy. There's no depression. There's no anxiety. We don't understand those things, and that's why I say, whenever a company does a wellness day, they need to make sure that people are taught. Right? There has to be a teaching element, because that's the only way we're going to raise awareness that mental health is a thing, and it doesn't mean it's just like going to the doctor because you have a headache or because whatever. It's the same. You need to look after your body as you look after your brain. Your brain is also a thing that needs to be taken off, or your mind, right? So it really is just about raising awareness. It's across board. I mean, just even medical aids pay for psychologists. People don't even know. People don't even know they've got benefits to go and see a psychologist, because they're not interested in the mind. No, absolutely. And then going back then on nutrition, because I think for today that's the focus. As much as we're talking holistically, the focus is on nutrition. You mentioned earlier on that people neglect what they put into their bodies. As long as I go to gym, right? As long as I'm staying fit, the outer side is important. But how do you then strike that balance? Because when I read these stats where they would say, is it 90% of what you take in and 10%, 90% in the 80% in the kitchen and 20% at gym? Yes. It just has to become a lifestyle. You have to first know that my health is not just what I look like. It's not just the physical. It's not just the pain that I feel in my knee. There's a mental element, there's an emotional element as well, right? And that's whenever I speak to my patients, you can come to me with a pain in the knee, and we are going to go deeper. We're going to find things that are happening at home, because a lot of the time what people don't understand is that what we are experiencing in the body comes from an emotional element, comes from a psychological element. If you have an argument with your partner at home, and then you drive, you are stuck in traffic, there's a lot going on. By the time you get to the office, you're not the same person that woke up in the morning, so it definitely, our health is very complex. I think a lot of us don't understand. Our health is complex, and right next to health is nutrition, right? So they go hand in hand. There's just no way you can have the one without the other. Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting, because we don't think that deep.
Yeah.
As much as
we don't link them.
We don't link them, because everything else is interlinked, but we just never do. You're just looking at situations in isolation.
Yeah.
And then maybe just from your perspective then, going back, because we're living in a we've spoken about this, I think it's also the pattern.
Yeah.
That we're living in a very busy world. What are the 3 maybe practical habits that you would advise for busy professionals?
Yeah.
And for I'm speaking because
of course. I mean, most of us are busy people, So first thing is basically what we've already mentioned, which is meal prep.
Yes.
There's no way you can survive this race that we live in without actually prepping your meals, right? So you need to prep, and prepping doesn't necessarily mean, people think that now I have to go to Woolies on Sunday and make all the food for the whole week. It doesn't have to be that extensive. If you want to, that's fine. But it's just about sitting down and actually being conscious of what I'm going to eat tomorrow or in the morning as you're there going through your day. Also just make a side note of, what am I actually having for breakfast? What am I having for lunch? Just have an idea. It really, really, it will change your life. Because if you just move, and then at that time when you're feeling hungry, you're like, okay, what's around? That's when you're not gonna eat healthy, right? So meal prep is very important. Or just meal consciousness. Just be conscious of what you're gonna have, right? And then the other thing is supplementation. It's big, simply because we don't get, as I've already said, eating doesn't necessarily mean you are getting the nutrition that you need. So if you know that you're a busy person, chances are you're not eating enough, then supplement, right? If you know you're healthy, you're getting your 5 fruits and veggies a day, you're getting your fiber and all that, that's fine. We don't need supplementation. But if you are like 90% of the world, then we need supplements. Really, in this day and age, almost all of us should be on supplements. But like, as I said, if you're eating healthy, then you don't have to. Okay? So you need to prep your meals, supplement. And then the last thing is more for mental and emotional health. And that is just take time to relax. Right? And I always teach my patients this term called press pause. We call it press pause. So you need to learn to press pause. Right? And press pause is basically like a 15-minute segment when you switch off your phone. Like, you switch it off, as in it's off, I'm not available, because our phones are our prison.
Absolutely.
Right? So you switch it off and you take 15 minutes and you just bring yourself towards yourself, right? Yes. And you just relax. And as much as it can be difficult to do it during the day, I always say at least at night before you sleep, because that's how you will make sure that at least you're getting the rest that you need, so you can sleep without thinking about what's going on at the office, what happened at this meeting, and then you wake up and you go and do it again. Right? So you need to actually take some time to relax, to center yourself, and at night it works better. It's literally 15 minutes, and you'll be surprised how long 15 minutes can be when your phone is off, when you're not watching TV, right? It just gives you that time to work through yourself, work through some things, your emotions, and then you can sleep, and you'll sleep peacefully. Even if you sleep 4 hours, you'll wake up feeling so much better than if you sleep 8 hours with everything going on in your head.
That's absolutely true. Because I think we are just so busy. Our minds are always just so busy. We don't have time to, just to center yourself, to bring yourself towards yourself, reflect on the day.
Yes.
Just have that peace in your head, because everything is just, we just keep
busy.
on going.
We just keep on going from day to day. Yes. So that's why essentially with nutrition, that's why it's nutrition wellness. It's not just about what you eat, but it's also how the nutrition affects your wellness altogether. So they interlinked. So there's never a time when I can talk about nutrition without going into the wellness part of it.
Because it is important.
It's highly
like
important.
We said already, they're interlinked. So if you neglecting one, it's affecting the other things.
Definitely.
I think that's very key. So we spoke about the issue of intermittent fasting, right? Every single time there's, specifically for diets, you try these new things, carnivore diet and all of these things, and you confirmed that intermittent fasting is not for everybody, right? So how does one know which one can work for them? Because I'm asking these things because if you can ask me, I've tried all of them.
Look, we generally say the best diet is the one that fits into your lifestyle, right?
Okay.
So what works for me will not necessarily work for you. Will work for them, So you have to try it out. Unfortunately, you have to, because I can come to you and say, oh my gosh, there's this diet, the carnivore, what. You try it, after 3 days, you're like, I can't do this, right? So it's the one that fits into your lifestyle. And there's a lot of these fad diets. Like every second week, there's something.
You hear of something else.
There's something else. So for me, when it comes to diets, I always say, number one, it has to be healthy. So healthy in terms of, I'm not a fan of diets that cut out whole foods. Where they'll say, don't eat carbohydrates. I don't like. I will never condone something like that, because your body needs carbohydrates. Your body needs the 5 food groups. So if somebody comes and says don't eat proteins or don't eat, it's too much. Rather say there's certain carbohydrates you're not supposed to eat, and then you eat some, right? So there must always be a differentiation, the good and the bad, good and the bad. So that's I always, first of all, will say that diet has to have that element in it, where it's not cutting out a whole food group. And then make sure that it's something that fits into your lifestyle, as I've said. So, like I said, intermittent fasting works for me because of my busy mornings more than my afternoons. But also, what I love about intermittent fasting, and I usually recommend it, is because you can move it around. So some people will only eat in the morning and not eat at night. They'll only have breakfast and lunch and not have dinner. And some people will only have lunch and dinner and not have. So you can fit it into your window, or your however your lifestyle is.
The way it is,
right?
So at least it's good that I hear it from you directly. Because I tried intermittent fasting, right? Where now would use is at an 8-hour period where I'd start eating at 11 o'clock and then stop at 6 o'clock, right? But then books and everything else that has taught you where breakfast is important. 11 o'clock, it's still in the morning, but health benefits with regards to that, or?
So it really, really depends. Like I said, with intermittent fasting, it has to be done well. As I said, it has to be strict. So with your body, even the people who say breakfast is important, it's your body adapts, right? Our bodies, our minds are very clever. They adapt to what you do. So if you for a whole month don't eat breakfast and you only start eating at 12, then the body's like, this is what we're doing. And then your whole homeostasis, everything changes to adapt to that, right? But that's why it has to be strict. It has to be consistent. You can't now, today you're eating at 10, the next day it's 12, the next day, it has to be like programming a computer.
Okay.
Right. So when you do it that way, it works well. And as I said, it adapts. And with intermittent fasting, I also love it for people that are struggling with diabetes or insulin resistance, because it also helps to regulate blood glucose levels. Right. So that's it helps in that way. It regulates your insulin levels, it regulates your blood glucose levels. When you go for periods, for that fasting time is very important, because we tend to overeat. All of us, most of us actually overeat. So when you have that window I almost said starving, but it's
fasting.
Of fasting, yes.
Yes.
Of fasting. It helps with your blood glucose levels. It helps the insulin to dip, and then so that when you eat, you're starting from. I'm getting a bit technical, but anyway. At the end of the day, that fasting window just helps your body to function a bit better than if you're constantly eating.
Okay. It's always good just to have a background and an understanding when you do things, because we just adopt.
We just read.
We heard intermittent fasting. We are there.
Go TikTok.
Exactly. TikTok says that you do even if you don't want things. And then we spoke about the vitamin drips, which you also administer. Just tell us a little bit more about those things, because we're going into the winter season at this point. So maybe if you can just elaborate.
So we do offer vitamin drips, and they're tailored to your needs. So we have like immune boosters, as I said. So if you just want to prepare for winter as it's coming, so your immune booster then will be like your high dose of vitamin C, glutathione, those things that are going to help your body, to your immune system to work well. We have things like flu recovery drips, so this is when you're already sick now, and then it just helps your immune system to fight the infection or whatever it is that you have. There's energy boosters. There's basically everything for everyone. Anti-aging as well. Skin glow drips for those that want to glow.
Winter, we still want to glow.
So they're prepped according to your. So there's usually like a smaller consultation if you don't know what would help, and then we'll get what to the bottom of your issue, and then you can mix and match it.
Okay, that's nice. And I think I like how you also just confirmed, Tori, you never speak about nutrition without linking it to wellness, because they are interlinked. So maybe, Dr. Lebogang, if there are people that would want to get in contact with you, people that, that would want to learn more, because like you said, what works for me may not necessarily work for the other person, where can they contact you and maybe tell us a bit more about your services?
All right, so we are at Manhattan Office Park, which is on 16 Peter Street in Highveld Technopark. And then the office number, well, I'm actually visible on TikTok. I think TikTok is my biggest platform. Yes. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook as well. Our contact details are on there. And the services we offer is basically weight loss, the things that people love, right? Weight loss, detox as well, that's a big one. And then the employee wellness programs or corporate wellness programs. Vitamin drips as well, and then we also do emotional wellness. Emotional wellness, in mental health and emotional wellness. So these can be consultations. We also do private talks for like events. If there's an event or something like that, we do health and wellness talks as well.
Okay, and then just lastly from my side, because the podcast is there to educate, right, and to give information. And you mentioned that you do wellness days with corporates and companies. So on that part, is it the talks that you mentioned? Because it is quite critical that as much as we focusing on the nicer parts, the testing, that you need to educate. They need to come out with something from there. So from that standpoint, would companies then contact you directly for talks?
Yes, so they can definitely contact us for talks. And then there's always like for wellness events or corporate events, we can offer just the talk. So because you get some people who already have their service providers, but they don't have that element, that teaching element, and then you can just come do the talk and go, and then you continue with your wellness. Or we can do the whole program where we curate it from the talk, the assessments, all of that. And then there's also the element of vitamin drips, because we also do vitamin drips for corporate events as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Lebogang. I think I've learned a lot from today's session, and I'm sure the guys also learned a lot from today's session as well. So you will definitely be seeing me.
No, that's
give us a vitamin drip, then we can discuss in terms, because it is quite critical, especially for somebody who's in and out.
Yeah.
I don't do the office.
Yes.
In and out. Sometimes, like I said, you're scared of taking body lunchbox because there's no time. So how do we meal prep? How do we, things that are going to work for us? Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much for coming through.
Thank
We really
you so
appreciate
much.
it. Thank you very much for watching. So if you have a story to share with us, please contact us on marketing@letshalohr.co.za. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And like I always say, you don't have to take everything from the podcast. However, take one thing with you. Until the next episode, salang hante. Bye.